Coronavirus has had a devastating impact around the world. Governments have taken action in response. One of those actions is to close the Ontario courts and only allow access to litigants in the most desperate of situations. Separation and divorce can also present difficult circumstances for parents and spouses. With the closing of the courts, those separated parents and spouses have lost a way to resolve disagreements at a time when stress and anxiety can provoke even more disagreement. There has been an increase in divorce applications in China since the start of the pandemic. The prospect of having to wait a long time to resolve a family law issue creates a lot of anxiety for separated parents and spouses who find the time of transition difficult and want to get it over. The good news is that there are ways to find solutions for parents and children even at this difficult time. I'm John Schuman, a certified specialist in family law in Ontario. I'm also a mediator, arbitrator, and collaborative lawyer. This podcast is a companion to my book, Guide to the Basics of Ontario Family Law, which is available on the iBookstore, Amazon, Kobo, and at fine bookstores. COVID-19 has closed the Ontario family courts, the place where divorcing spouses traditionally went to work out the issues arising from their separation. For the most part, courts continue to hear matters in open courtrooms where the virus can spread. The system lacks the ability to hear matters electronically, over the phone, or by video over the internet. So coming to court has become a dangerous way to resolve things like parenting disputes, child support, spousal support, or property division because of the risk of transmission of the virus. As troubling as that may seem, there's been a big push in family law to move away from dealing with most things, even everything, in court. In fact, the upcoming changes to the Divorce Act in July will put a large emphasis on resolving things outside of court. So the coronavirus may just be pushing us into the future a little faster than people had planned or anticipated. There are several ways to resolve family law issues, all the things arising from separation, without going to court. In fact, the vast majority of separating couples and parents resolve their matters without ever stepping foot inside a courthouse. Believe it or not, most family law cases are resolved with the parties signing a separation agreement without going to court. There are some requirements to have a legal and enforceable separation agreement, but none of those requirements involve going to court. In fact, lawyers for you and your ex can exchange the required information and negotiate the terms of a separation agreement without stepping a foot outside of their offices. Maintain the social distance required by the pandemic response. So, even during the pandemic, you and your ex can move your matters forward towards a resolution. Obviously, some disagreements are harder to resolve. That was why people used to go to court, but for a while they have rarely had the need to do so. Alternative dispute resolution set procedures that are alternatives to court for resolving disputes have been growing, particularly in family law. At my firm, we are trained in and use all the ADR options. And in the face of the pandemic, we can use them to get matters finished for clients without waiting for the courts to open again. Many separating couples and parents have found mediation to be an effective way to resolve arguments. In mediation, the trained mediator helps the parties find ways to resolve their disagreements. This is very similar to what judges do at case conferences and settlement conferences in court. Although, since mediators charge for their time, they often spend a lot more of it getting parties all the way through to a settlement. Although traditionally mediations have been conducted in a boardroom, they can be conducted over a phone or through video conferencing. Electronic mediation has become increasingly prevalent in places like Northern Ontario, where the parties are far apart. Although it can work fine in many other situations, even in cases of self-isolation because of the coronavirus, it works because the coronavirus cannot be transmitted over the internet. I have got parties to reach a settlement in electronic mediation. There are even situations where I find that they are easier than in-person mediations. At a recent conference, I spoke about how to use electronic mediation effectively. For more about the process at mediation, check out the previous episode about exactly that topic. Collaborative practice usually involves a series of meetings, although truthfully, the collaborative team also do a lot of work between the meetings over the phone. Again, there is no reason why collaborative practice could not help separate spouses from coming up with their own solutions over video conferencing to avoid the transmission of viruses. But what if separated spouses or parents just can't agree? What if they need a judge to make the decision for them? It is still possible that they do not need a judge or a formal, lengthy, and more complicated court process. What they actually need is an impartial, trained decision maker to listen to both sides, consider the arguments, and make the decision. That can also happen in family arbitration. In fact, many separating spouses like family arbitration better than court because they get to pick the arbitrator they respect and trust instead of having a judge assigned to them by chance. Since there are no set legally required procedures in family arbitration, the process just has to be fair to both sides, there is no reason why the process cannot be conducted over the phone or by video conference or even by writing an email. In fact, many arbitrations are done just that way. All those options allow both sides to present their arguments and allow the arbitrator to make a decision. Further, Section 58.9 of the Family Law Act says that an arbitrator's decision can be enforced by the Superior Court, just like a court order made by a judge. So if you need to go to court before they reopen, you may want to convince your ex to go to family arbitration now instead of waiting. Parents who are having difficulty with their current parenting plan or parenting order may want to consider hiring a parenting coordinator to help them resolve their issues. I went over parenting coordination in detail on a previous episode. There are also episodes that describe all the ADR options in detail. Check out those episodes when deciding on whether to choose one of those alternatives to court. If you would like to resolve your family law matter now instead of waiting for the court to reopen, either I or one of my colleagues can not only help you as a lawyer or collaborative lawyer, but also as a mediator or arbitrator. Call Carrie Ann Mitchell at 416-446-5847 to discuss your ADR options and to set it up. It is best not to speak to a mediator or arbitrator alone to prevent the appearance of bias. For a more thorough explanation of Ontario family law, family court, and the alternatives to family court that you can do right now, including some tips for how best to succeed in your separation or divorce, get a copy of my book, Guide to the Basics of Ontario Family Law. Again, you can find it on the iBookstore, on Amazon, and for Kobo. You can also get a lot more Ontario family law information on www.schumanlaw.ca. Not only are there hundreds of pages of family law information and links, but there are links to where to get my book and links to reach my office to meet with either me or one of my colleagues. Because it is always best to get a lawyer who can give you expert advice that is specific to your situation. In addition to my website, keep up to date on family law and children's law issues by liking my Facebook page, following me on Twitter at @SchumanFamLaw, and finding me on LinkedIn. Of course, please also subscribe to my YouTube channel and the audio versions of the Ontario Family Law podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and www.schumanlaw.ca. Thanks for participating in this podcast. We will get together again soon.